Hello, everyone, and welcome to Quad Radio, as Quad Radio welcomes one of the greatest off-road racers of all time. That, of course, the one, the only, the 7-time ATV GNCC and one-time motorcycle champ, and the second winningest rider of all time in GNCC history, Mr. Barry Hawk. Barry, welcome to Quad Radio.
Yeah, man, glad to be on. It's a privilege to be on here, and glad to finally, I guess, talk to you and get some history or whatever, and hopefully things turn out good.
Yeah, no doubt. And Barry, just first and foremost, I know a lot of people probably wondering what's going on. I know that you and I work a lot with the GNCC series together, and a lot of folks have been seeing you around, and you've become a big part of that since announcing your retirement, I guess, a little over a year ago.
Yeah, a little over a year ago, I actually had some offers to race for the 2011 season, and I just thought, I didn't know if I wanted to lay it on the line week in and week out and talk to the people here at Racer Productions, and I thought, I might as well try this and see how it turns out. And I'm having a lot of fun, and I'm still involved with the sport. I mean, I've done GNCC since I was 16 years old, and I'm 39 now, but actually officially when I retired I would have been 37, but it's been in my blood for a long time, and love the sport, and hopefully the racers, I kind of help them out a little bit. They can come talk to me, hey, this part of the track isn't good or whatever, and I'm looking at it from their standpoint. Would it be fun to go ride that specific section or whatever? So it's good.
Nice, and it's been a welcome change, I know, for a lot of the riders and stuff to have a fellow a racer, helping lay out those courses like that. I know JR's, involved in it a lot and so forth. But what's really cool about it for you is that you have it. That you have the knowledge of a GNCC trail from a racer standpoint, from both an ATV and a motorcycle standpoint. So I think your ability there is a little more unique than anybody out there on the trail, and it's certainly been a welcome change. I know that.
Yeah, and I think that's what, maybe, I guess Bill Balance, he would be in my position. He's kind of retired from racing. I don't know actually if he's officially announced his retirement, or he still may ride here and there. I'm not exactly sure on that, but, if Racer Productions hired him to go out and build the tracks, he wouldn't. Although I know he's done some bike riding, he's never actually been out there and raced the GNCCs on the bike. So, he could probably build an awesome quad track. And the same could be said about some of the bike guys that's retired. They could build a great bike track, but it may not be good for the quad guys. So I guess I bring that to the table, which I can look at it from the standpoint of, is it going to be good for a quad, or is it going to be good for a bike, or can I incorporate the track to work for both of them? So, I guess there isn't too many people out there that I guess could do what I'm doing. So it's definitely interesting, and it's a lot more work than people. Actually, Tommy Harris, right before you called, we was talking a little bit about building the tracks, and people don't realize what goes into it. And I didn't tell him, but I was thinking, as a racer, I never gave it much thought as to how much work or when the guys get there to set up the track or whatever. And we're basically there for a week before getting the track ready. So it's definitely a lot of work, and but it keeps me from working a job sitting in an office somewhere that I wouldn't really like to do. I get to go out and be out in the woods and ride quads and dirt bikes and drive bulldozers and water trucks and all that stuff. I mean, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it is. It's like giant Tonka toys almost.
Yeah, for sure. That's basically what it is. I mean, most little kids, probably most of the guys that race, when they were little, they played with the bulldozers and played with the little the Tonka bulldozers and quads and bikes, and now I'm not playing with them. I'm actually working on them and working out on a track. So it's definitely fun, and I'm always doing something different, whether I'm, like I said, driving a bulldozer or on the quad, whatever. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, Barry, you mentioned there just a moment ago that you've been doing it since you were like 16 years old. And obviously that plays a key role into that as well. You've been around the GNCC series itself for a long, long time, back when, you know, basically it was all controlled by Big Dave, and he went out and made all the trails and stuff. So you've got a lot of knowledge there. But speaking of that knowledge, let's talk a little bit about that. Let's back up and talk about Barry Hawk. Let's go back to the 16-year-old man that got involved in ATV racing so many years ago.
Yeah, I mean, actually, well, from the time I think my first race, I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. And I think it was on a bike at the local county fair. I mean, that's how it all started. But if you back up from that, I mean, I just always liked to ride, whether it was a bike or a quad or whatever it was. You know, my grandpap, I remember when I was little, he was one of the only people around how to ride a lawnmower. And, you know, I'd go, hey, can I cut your grass? You know, if there's anything with an engine or something, you know, I would go do it. But actually, I think I may have been, I don't know if I was 15 whenever I got my first quad. That was so long ago, I don't quite remember. But when I got my first quad, I had a couple friends that were doing some races, some local stuff, and I remember one of them told me that there was going to be a national at GNCC in Brownsville, Luzerne Park. And it's like 20 miles from where I grew up. And I'm like, well, yeah, let's go do it. And I talked my dad into it. And we went there and I raced 4-stroke B on the quad. And I ended up getting 5th there. And then the next race was in Turin. I'm up above Pittsburgh and it wasn't too far. So my dad said, yeah, we'll get her there. So I ended up going there and getting 5th again. And then the next race I remember was in Beckley, West Virginia, which is about 3.5 hours from home. And I remember my dad saying, that's too far to go to a race. We can't do that. You know, that's just too far for something like that. And I'm like, I was all bummed out. And then a couple of the guys that talked me into going to the Brownsville race, they were going to Beckley, to the Winter Place Ski Resort. And anybody that's traveled, I think it's on I-77, has been past the ski resort. If you're going south, it'd be on the left-hand side. That's where the race was at. And this friend of mine said, yeah, if you can't go, you know, we'll take you. So I went with them, and we went there, and my mom and dad ended up coming, but I rode with the other guys, and I ended up winning my class in the 4-stroke B class that day at my third GNCC. And from that point on, I was hooked on it. And it was like, you know, whatever, I got to go race the rest of these forever. So, I mean, that's basically where it all started out, and you know, it progressed from that. My first year, I think I finished 3rd in the 4-stroke B class that year, and then that would have been 89. And in 1990, I raced 4-stroke A class on the quad, which back then there wasn't an official pro class. It was just A classes. And I raced 4-stroke A part of the year, and then I ended up buying a 250R Honda. And the last 3 races of that year, which would have been 1990, I moved up to the 258 class, which at the time was the premier class. That would have been the pro class. And I don't remember, I maybe got like 6th place at one of them or something. But, I mean, I was 17 years old, you know, just going out there having fun. And then in 1991, I raced. I thought, well, we'll go do, you know, talk my dad into going to all of them. And that's when he started racing, because he had always rode his whole life. So that's kind of what got me into it, is, you know, he would always ride. And then I don't know if we may have missed the 1st or 2nd round that year in 91, but anyhow, I had a couple okay finishes in 91. And then I remember at the John Penton race in 91, it was really dusty. And at the time, that was when Bob Sloan and Chuck DeLulo, Norm Bish, Floyd Deans, all those guys were the top guys on the quad. And that day, I remember the exact day, getting a hole shot and that day, and got my first overall win. I was 18 years old, and when I finished, I mean, everybody was like, it was almost like surreal, like, can't believe this happened, you know, I won. You know, I beat the best guys in the world on the quad, and I remember everybody, you know, celebrating all this and that, and then the reality set in. Holy crap! I got to go up on a podium and talk in front of all these people. What am I going to do? I can't talk. It was like I was paranoid, but you know, it was just that's kind of like, you know, I guess the first couple of years, you know, it was just kind of whirlwind. It seemed like things happened really quick, and you know, just my career progressed. You know, in 90, I didn't win any more. 91, 92, I had some 2nd and 3rd place overalls. And in '93, that was the year everything started clicking for me, and won I don't know how many races, and ended up winning the championship in '93, and won them all the way up to '99 when I retired from racing the quad. So it wasn't. I guess looking back on it now, when you start racing, you think, yeah, I want to be the champion. I want to be, at the time I wanted to be Bob Sloan and the Chuck DeLulo, and then I guess once I start winning, and there was the younger kids, maybe like a Chris Borch was thinking, well, I want to be like Barry Hawk, and at the time I never really thought of that, but it progressed to where it is, and I mean it's been fun, and I appreciate everything I got, and everywhere I've been. I mean it's been a great career.
I don't doubt that a bit, Barry. It sounds like it. What about the DeLulus and the Sloans? What were those guys like? I mean, the image that we get of them, listening from the standpoint of you guys, that these guys were like men of steel. You know what I mean? That they were like tough as nails and just Iron Men, basically. That's like Bob, the Iron Man Sloan's name was. Yeah.
I mean, it was. I remember, these first couple of years when those guys were the top dogs. I remember Sloan and DeLulo, those two guys. Chuck DeLulo was super, super talented on the quad, and Bob was too, but I think Chuck was more naturally talented, but Bob put more, I don't know if he trained more or he wanted to win more or whatever, and I think they both won 3 championships. But those guys, I mean, it was like, if those guys were coming and if they had a bad start and he was in front of them, if those two were together, you better just kind of almost move over and let them go, because those two they're going to go tooth and nail and do what they got to do to beat each other. And I remember a few races where I was like, I seen some things happen. I mean, I remember one time, I think I was in 3rd place. No, I was in 4th. It was Bob, Chuck, and I believe it was Roy Daines, and I would have been 4th. We was all 4 together. It was maybe 1st or 2nd lap. And Chuck and Bob had passed each other a couple of times, and I was like, well, I was just happy. Man, I'm here seeing these guys battling it out. And I remember Chuck, I don't exactly remember what Chuck had done, but he'd done something Bob didn't like, and Bob slammed on the brakes and right in the middle of the track, and there was nowhere to go. Slammed on the brakes and was back, like pointing at Chuck and yelling at him, and there had been a few 4-letter words come out or whatever, and I was just sitting there with like my chins on the gas tank, like, wow, this is so cool. I can't believe this is happening. And, I mean, I don't remember what race that was or how I ended up doing or who won or whatever, but just, I mean, those guys were just unbelievable how those guys went back and forth at it. And then Chuck may have retired maybe like 92 or something, and then Bob was kind of, he would have been almost left at the top, and then that's whenever I was still the young kid and I'd start winning and, kind of battling with Bob. I was like the new kid on the block, and he was the old veteran, and he was, of everyone I've raced on the quad and the bike, Bob is by far the toughest competitor I ever raced. He wanted to win more than anyone. I mean, he would, whatever it took for him to win, he was going to do it. And I mean, I've raced everyone from, Bill Ballins, Chris Borch on the quad to Juha Summonen on the bike, and by far Bob was the guy. Whenever if he was coming down the last lap with you and Bob, it was like, oh man, what's going to happen? I don't want to be around him because something crazy may happen. But he was definitely a tough competitor. But I mean, it was something with Bob and those guys, through the years. It was really interesting.
Sounds like it. And Barry, we're going to take a quick break right here, and this is the end of segment 1 here on Quad Radio. If you want to hear more, I'm going to continue with part 2 here on Quad Radio.